Awesome. Okay, well, we've given people a moment to join, so we might as well just jump straight into the webinar. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about the e-commerce accounting toolkit, how Relay makes cash flow management easy. Cool. So today on the call you have me. So I'm Amy from A2X. I work in the marketing team, product marketing at A2X. And we also have Deanna here from Relay. Thanks for joining, Deanna. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you do at Relay?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, A2X and Amy. I'm Deanna Zabrikis. I'm a senior account manager here at Relay, product specialist, but I'm also a profit-first professional. And I haven't looked in the chat yet, but I have a feeling that I'm going to recognize quite a few people here today.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, we definitely, if you're lingering in there, feel free to drop a note and say hi. Cool. Okay. Well, before we jump into the webinar, we're just going to talk a little bit about Camp A2X. So that's kind of on the back of Camp A2X is where this webinar has come from. So you might have heard about Camp A2X. It was an event that A2X ran earlier this year, bringing together the top minds in e-commerce accounting. So you might have seen some of the social posts, or some of our attendees might have actually been there. So we had a bunch of sessions, but some really strong messages came through. So one of the first ones was that selling online is difficult, and that's especially been the case in the last 12 months. Things are getting a lot harder. One of the other points we came across is that things change very quickly, especially in e-commerce. So this might be in terms of processes, it might be in terms of the channels and the sales platforms themselves, and definitely technology. There's technology popping up all over the place. Now, this might seem really daunting, but the good thing is that there's a lot of opportunity for e-commerce accountants and bookkeepers. E-commerce businesses are looking for accountants and bookkeepers and experts that know the space. And something that you can provide for those sellers is financial advisory. So with the landscape being so tough, businesses need accurate insights, they need accurate financials, and in particular, they need to have visibility into their cash flow now more than ever with everything being so challenging. So that's a little bit of an overview of Camp A2X. We also had Relay there sponsoring this year. So yeah, it was awesome to have you guys there. All right, let's jump into the agenda and what we're gonna cover today. So first of all, we're just gonna provide a little bit of background about understanding why cash flow is important, particularly from an e-commerce perspective. And then we're going to talk about how accountants and bookkeepers can help in this space. Then we're going to have a little look at A2X and how A2X sort of fits in here and a demo of A2X. And then we're going to jump over to Relay to talk about easy cash flow management and also a demo of A2X. And spoiler, they have some awesome statistics and data points that we're going to be talking through. All right, so let's start off. Why understanding cash flow is so important for e-commerce businesses. So it seems that cash flow is a bit of a stress or pain point for any business, and Deanna will cover this in more detail shortly. But I'm sure it's something that all of you have heard before. A really common stat that comes up all the time is that 82% of businesses fail because of cash flow problems, or I'm sure you've heard something kind of along those lines. And it makes sense if you don't know what cash is coming in or what cash is going out. How are you going to run a business? How are you going to make decisions? How are you going to have that confidence that you're going to be able to pay upcoming things? So specifically from an e-commerce perspective, some areas where cash flow is really important is number one, inventory and supply management. So we say it all the time, but inventory is probably the most important. Well, it's likely the biggest cost for an e-commerce seller. It's also probably at times the biggest headache. So running out of stock is an online seller's nightmare, especially with the upcoming holiday period. But also kind of on the flip side, purchasing too much stock isn't always ideal either because it will put a strain on your funds and it's likely that the stock will just sit there. So having a healthy cash flow allows e-commerce businesses to keep their inventory levels optimized. So meeting customer demand without delay and not, without having to wait for more stock to come in. But not having too much stock that it's just sitting there. And not only that, but with stable cash, a business can likely leverage maybe a bulk purchasing discounts. They can pay on time, and they can also probably even negotiate better payment terms that are going to work if they know when a better times of cash flow for them. The next one is covering operational costs. So this might seem like a real no-brainer. So if you aren't across cash flow, then how are you going to have certainty around your operational costs? But from an e-commerce perspective, operational costs aren't your sort of regular business expenses. So there are things like platform fees for the specific sales channels, marketing costs. So advertising is huge for e-commerce businesses as it's a really competitive space, and you want to make sure that you can afford to be increasing your spend there. And then even another one that's really important is handling refunds. So it's very likely that if you're selling online, you might have a really good refund policy, but you need to make sure you've got the cash flow that if you go through a period of a lot of refunds, you can actually be paying those back. So having this insight can help you make smart decisions without delay, which is really important, going back to the point we made earlier where competition is so strong. The next one is managing growth and fluctuations. So for many e-commerce sellers, they've got an end goal. That might be to scale, that might be to add a new product line, that might be to invest in new technology, increasing fulfillment capacity. So they might be currently working out of their garage, for example, and wanting to get into maybe a 3PL. Whatever that is, they need to be able to manage the seasonal changes and the delays that come from online platforms. So Amazon, for example, pays out sellers every 2 weeks. So they need to be aware of that, because obviously that could put a pretty big strain on cash flow. And then the final one is migrating risk. And again, this one's a little bit of a no-brainer. Having cash on hand acts as a safety net. I think that's kind of a universal truth. So it protects the business from unexpected expenses, currency fluctuation. So if you're selling a lot overseas, or you might be purchasing your goods overseas. And then the other one is temporary account suspensions. So this can happen. It's a common one on Amazon, for example. If something happens, you get locked out of your account. How is that going to impact your cash flow? It does actually fall into the profit first methodology. And an example we often use there, kind of a real life example, is again on Amazon. It's really common for a seller to send their goods to Amazon, and there's a long period in transit, or they may not actually arrive. Which kind of seems a little bit outrageous, really, but we've had examples of customers who have sent 1 or even 2 batches of goods to Amazon, and they were sort of lost in transit. Now, often they do turn up eventually, but that's a huge financial strain on your business if you're having to purchase additional inventory. So having that safety net or some money in stock is really beneficial as well. So that's a pretty big run through. Is there anything else you would add there, Deanna?
No, I think you got it covered, but thinking about that inventory purchase, especially before the holiday season, definitely seems to be looming. So being able to plan for that is always the best option.
Yeah, totally. And having that confidence, right? I can't imagine anything worse than just not knowing if you're about to pay for it, or all of that. So a lot of these issues might seem relatively operationally based, so kind of fall on the owner or the operator. But there is a lot the bookkeeper or accountant or can be doing to help. So number one with that is educating users. So many sellers don't have expertise in accounting, so they might not have insight into this. So number one, you can be educating your sellers. And then the other one is helping to implement good technology and process. So like I say, most sellers don't come into business to spend more time on their accounting. Often it's kind of the other way around. So if you can be supporting those sellers or providing that expertise in terms of which technology they should be using, or into forecasting and things like that. So a little bit of an overview here. Accountants and bookkeepers can be helping with cash flow forecasting. We're going to hear a lot more about that shortly. You can help with planning payments. So is it possible to spread these out? Which of the payments are really making the biggest impact or having the biggest strain? Do they have good payment terms? This is all stuff that can be helped with good forecasting. Setting budgets and reducing unnecessary costs. So this might seem like something that is more on our operational side, but without that kind of expertise or even the time to be doing this, this is something you can definitely be providing for your customers. Trimming kind of costs that might seem unnecessary or spreading those payments out. Tax obligations. So this is a real biggie. So number one, making sure they're putting money aside for the tax bill that is coming up. And then this kind of gets even more complicated with e-commerce because, again, using Amazon as an example, there's a scheme called Marketplace Facilitator Tax, which is essentially where Amazon will collect the tax and actually remit it on your behalf. But there's a whole kind of level of complication that goes with this because it depends on what states you're selling in and jurisdictions and things like that. So it is still on the responsibility of the seller to make sure that they have the right amount of tax set aside. Automating your processes as much as possible. So like I said earlier, sellers don't want to be spending more time on their accounting. So this is a real opportunity where you can provide expertise with apps and how they can be saving time. And then lastly, a real difference a lot of the top e-commerce accountants and bookkeepers we partner with is additionally to the, traditional accounting and bookkeeping services, they can provide a financial advisory service. So they're working with their customers to set goals and really understand the business to prepare for what's coming and what they need to meet these goals. So a lot of sellers will have an end goal in mind, whether that's growth or increasing margins or investing in a new product or even an exit. So working with your customers to provide that financial advisory is really beneficial and a point of difference. Anything else that you would come across, Deanna?
Not anything additional, but your point number 4 here, Amy, this is what I see a lot of, especially with e-commerce sellers coming onto Relay. And many business owners kind of start off with one checking account and everything they have is in one spot and they're supposed to know what's coming in, what's going out. Can they import inventory? Do they have enough for taxes? And like you said too, most people don't get into business to work on the financials. So to be able to kind of spin these numbers really quickly in your mind and decide like, do I have enough for it all? We find honestly the easiest option here is set up a separate account. And obviously I'd have to plug Relay here to make that easily. You can open accounts at no charge with no minimum balance, but it's the whole idea of understanding more of what's going on in the business. And if you do have these funds earmarked, your years are just going to be a whole lot easier working through making these big decisions. So make sure you have, like similar to A2X, it is built directly for e-commerce, have other platforms in your tech stack that are meant to support you in this way too.
Oh, 100%. I can't imagine trying to run things off one account. Like, surely I guess being in the space, it sort of makes more sense to have, some money set aside that, will be for inventory and maybe even a budget for advertising but yeah, absolutely a tax account set aside. Because I can imagine it's an incredibly stressful situation where the tax bill comes around and it either wipes out all of your funds or you don't have enough. So
exactly. And
everybody
knows the tax season is coming, right? The tax season is not the surprise.
Yeah.
It's the tax bill that is. So let's plan for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So this might all seem great and perhaps a little bit aspirational, but where do you even start? So a good place to start is with good data, because with bad data, kind of goes without saying, or inaccurate numbers, you can have the best intentions and you can have the best processes, but you will not have that visibility and you'll be flying blind. So most likely making kind of poor decisions. So that is where A2X comes in. So a very common problem with e-commerce sellers is being able to get accurate and reliable numbers. So this is actually really difficult. So that's the whole reason A2X exists. So what I have here is an example of a deposit that's hitting the bank account from an Amazon seller. So as I mentioned earlier, the seller will receive a payout every 2 weeks, and that money will just hit their bank account. So what's really common, or what's really tempting, is to just put this whole deposit that you receive from Amazon into a sales account, because likely an assumption that can be made is that this is your sales value. So that would be with bad data, I guess. So on the right here, we can see what this activity actually looks like with good data. So we can see here a really good call out is the tax that's being collected. So that's what we were saying earlier. That 24,772 is not the sales amount. That's just the money they've received. So we can see here that $2,830 of that was actually tax. There's refunds, there's charges, there's shipping. So all of that needs to be correctly accounted for. Because if you're running off a sales number that's inaccurate, you're likely making core decisions about the cost of your product or discounts or all sorts of things like that. Now, because it is so difficult, most sellers will either ignore it. So like I say, kind of put that whole deposit to a sales account and either go to their accountant when it comes to tax time, or even just ignore it entirely. They might create best guess entries. So they might use a clearing account method and try and kind of guess what their sales roughly were, but it's unlikely that it'll all balance out and tie back to what they've been paid. Or there is an option to do it manually. So might seem really obvious. There's the numbers in Amazon and the deposit that hits your bank account, but it's actually really difficult to try and align those numbers and figure out exactly what you've been paid. The option is to export a settlement export from Amazon, but then it's a really manual process of getting that to balance what you've been paid. So again, that's why A2X exists. So A2X lives between your e-commerce platform and your accounting software. And it's going to give you accurate and automated e-commerce accounting. So what it does is it'll pull in all of your raw data from Amazon. It works across many different sales channels, and it will start to identify the sales, the fees, the refunds, all of the different transactions that might have incurred on those platforms. It will categorize those into really accurate and automated summaries. So instead of posting across every single order individually, or having thousands of lines of data going through into your accounting software, A2X will create an entry that is a summary of each transaction type and post it through to your accounting software. And then the real benefit of this is that it'll match perfectly with the deposits you've seen in your bank account. So A2X will send through the journal entry and it will match perfectly to what you've been paid. So you have that real confidence that everything's tying out as it should be. And then the whole reason for using this and having accurate data is that so you can actually run the financial statements that you need to be doing the forecasting and making accurate decisions for your business. So that's a little bit of an overview of A2X. Let me just switch over and I'll do a bit of a demo now. So where I usually start is actually within the QuickBooks bank account. So this is probably a screen that you'll be familiar with. So what happens is the various sales channels will put deposits into the bank account. So we can see here, there's a bunch coming through. Spoiler, the A2X entry is already here. But this one, for example, is a Shopify deposit. And without that journal entry there, QuickBooks will generally suggest that you either add it to a sales account or put it to a clearing account. But as we've seen earlier in this example, that's not accurate. That's not a total sales amount. This number needs to be broken down to account for the fees and all of the different transactions. So that's what A2X does. So this is the A2X home screen. So what happens is you come in and you connect your QuickBooks and you also connect your Shopify or whichever sales channel you're selling on. Your data will then start flowing into A2X. So you can see here there's lots of payments that are coming through and A2X starts creating these entries. The main part of the setup within A2X is the accounts and tax mapping. So what this means is A2X will identify all of the different transaction types. So as you can see here, there's all of the different transaction types that we saw on this Shopify store. So we can see here that there's discounts, and we go into a lot of detail for this because it might have been done through a different process. It might have been a manual order. It might have been done on Shopify POS. If you're selling on Amazon, it might have been to a different country, for example. And so we go down into that granular detail. And then what you will need to do is just select an account here. And this is just a drop down of your chart of accounts within Xero or QuickBooks. So you can then select which account you would like those details to be posted through to. This might seem a little bit overwhelming. So the good news is A2X can actually automate this whole process for you. So you can come in, answer a few questions about your tax obligations and registrations, and then A2X will create the accounts that you need directly within QuickBooks, and it will also map all these transactions for you. So we definitely recommend looking or working with an e-commerce accountant to make sure that they're correct for your business, because every e-commerce business has their own nuance, but definitely it makes it a lot easier as a good starting point. So then what happens is once you've done your accounts and tax mapping, you're ready to start posting your entries through to A2X, through to QuickBooks. So if we have a look here, we can see an example of what the entry would actually look like. Awesome. Cool. So we can see here there's quite a bit of detail in this entry. I mean, it's quite a big payment, but we can see here, you'll be able to see the sales amount. You'll be able to see any tax that's being collected. So this will be, as we were talking earlier, this will be put away to a separate account. So you're accounting for the tax correctly. And you can see shipping, you can see Shopify fees, you can see refunds, you can see which transactions were taxed and weren't taxed. So ensure that you're actually only paying tax on transactions that you should be. All sorts of different transactions. So you can start to understand why doing this manually would be a really complicated process to be able to split out all of these different transactions. So all of that then gets posted through to QuickBooks, and it'll automatically match against the money that you've received in your bank account. So for example, if we have a look at this one here, we can see that this A2X entry has already been sent through. And then if we have a look at the journal entry, it will look very similar to what you just saw with an A2X. So you can see which account it's going through to in your QuickBooks. You can see the money that's been charged. Everything's all split out there. And then all you need to do is click match, and that entry will be taken care of. So that's a pretty good overview of how A2X works. Great, so that's a pretty good overview. So, and I feel like I've been chatting pretty solidly for the last 20 minutes. So I'll hand over to you, Deanna. So let's hear about Relay.
Awesome. Hey, I think we're splitting this 50-50, Amy. So this works for me. Everybody, it's Deanna from Relay here again. And yes, thank you, Amy, for kicking us off. I always love to see what other features are available for accountants and bookkeepers. Now, I wanted to touch on why all this matters and why we're all here. As accountants and bookkeepers, you see what's happening inside of every small business that you work with every day. But I wanted to provide a bit more context on how our business owners view their own businesses, and do they really think they are struggling with their own cash flow? Now, to find the answer to this question, recently Relay did a survey of 760 US small to medium-sized businesses. Now, the survey was conducted by a third-party researcher, and you're actually welcome to download the report if you'd like to read through it, as are lots of interesting tidbits, and I'm only going to be highlighting a few today. But I wanted to focus on just a couple of these before kind of highlighting what Relay has to offer as well. So if we head to the next slide here, we did ask owners how confident they were in managing their cash flow on a scale of 1 to 10. And the average score was 6.7 out of 10. Not bad, right? But then we started asking more specific questions later on in the survey. Questions like, had they ever missed a payment? Have they been forced to reduce employee hours? Have they had to cut their own salaries just to make ends meet? Well, when looking at that data, they measured closer to 3.9 out of 10 on average. Meaning, on average, business owners are actually 42% overconfident in their control of cash flow in their business. There is a disconnect between what they think is happening in their business versus what is actually happening in their business. Now, if we look at this slide here, this is just a breakdown of what that overconfidence level looks like and how it differs between industry, which is pretty eye-opening. But I wanted to point out that retail e-commerce is very close to the average here. So it definitely affects, everybody on the call today and their clients. Now, this next stat here is a big one. So the cash flow compass found that 91% of business owners had experienced some type of cash flow issue within the past year. This is something that almost all businesses are dealing with, but might not be prepared to deal with on their own. Many business owners aren't able to predict when these cash flow issues will hit and are not set up to be able to properly handle them in the moment. And of course, this is where you all come in. Now, for those interested, the top 3 drivers of cash flow issues that came up amongst the 760 business owners we surveyed were 33% were rising labor costs, 24% was seasonal fluctuations in business, and 22% of late payments from clients. Now, while we might not be able to adjust the economy and make labor more affordable, of course, you can have an impact on helping your clients prepare for seasonal fluctuations and build systems to protect them from dealing with late payments from clients. Now, we did ask business owners what tools they were using to help them manage their cash flow, and almost 40% are depending on an Excel spreadsheet or a pen and paper. That's just giving me nightmares already, not something that I want to share. Now, of course, we know that all of your clients here today know better, but it's important to call out that such a high percentage still haven't been introduced to tools like QuickBooks or Xero or A2X and are depending on manual processes. Thankfully, 39% are using some type of accounting software. Now, we also found that 95% of business owners are checking their bank balance before they make any major financial decisions. The problem here, and Amy and I were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier, businesses don't get the detailed view they need from a one-figure bank balance. Think about it. The bank balance provides a snapshot in time of where they're at financially, yes, but it doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't take into the account that payroll is getting pulled out tomorrow. It doesn't know that their supplier is about to cash that $50,000 check, which is why we wanted to make a banking platform that is built to meet your clients where they are. And it's why we built a banking platform that integrates with your favorite tools like QuickBooks and Xero and is built to work seamlessly with accountants and bookkeepers. Now, on the next slide here, I want to dive into Relay's features shortly, but for anybody who is hearing Relay for the first time today, a little bit of background on us. We were founded in 2018 by co-founders with a long track record in working in payments with small businesses and small business advisors. We serve all of the United States, and we don't have any physical branches. We are 100% online. And we are partnered with Thread Bank, a bank that has been around since 1925. And through Thread, all of our accounts are FDIC insured. I know Amy mentioned Profit First earlier, so I'm sure we have some fans on the call today. Relay is the official banking partner for Profit First. Now, just the basics that Relay does offer at this point, you can open up to 20 different checking accounts with no fees or minimum balances. You can really simplify your expense tracking with dedicated debit cards and limits. You can collaborate with whoever you need to within the business. You can send easily, ACH wire and checks, and you can streamline accounts payable with Relay Pro. Now, on this next slide, before we get to the Relay demo here, we've got a link, and I'm sure we'll post it in the chat as well. But this is how you can download Relay's Cash Flow Compass for free. It'll be in the chat. Again, this is where you can read all of the different stats that we shared today, plus more, but definitely take a look. And we're going to do a little screen share swap here, and I'll take you through a little bit of Relay. Okay, amazing. So what I wanted to point out for all the advisors on the call today is very similar to your accounting systems. Relay offers a partner dashboard. And the idea here is you've got multiple clients that you work with, multiple bank accounts. If clients choose to bank with Relay, you can access them all on one dashboard. So you are logging in once, and you can easily switch in between the client accounts that you have access to. You've got your own 2FA, your own password, and you can easily switch in between them to grab your statements, look at check images. Your access is centralized the more clients that you have that bank with Relay. Now, again, I mentioned all of Relay's core features are free. So whether it's opening bank accounts, making basic payments, we have a direct connection to QuickBooks Online and Xero. So you connect that bank feed once, you would never have to reconnect again, which I'm sure we're all too familiar with in the chat here today. And of course, we are FDIC insured up to $3 million. I know especially while you're waiting to purchase inventory in e-commerce, it's very common to have a high balance. So that's all protected when you do bank with Relay. Now, a really great thing here, and this really connects well with what Amy was sharing earlier on how to prepare for different things in the year, especially taxes or inventory, is each entity on Relay, you can have up to 20 separate checking and saving accounts on Relay. So this is already how you can set up different areas of the business, whether you have a staff and you want to save funds for payroll, for inventory, for tax, you name it, you can customize it here. And what the idea here is you can open additional bank accounts whenever you want. You're not physically heading in the bank to do this. You put in a name for the account, select whether it's checking or savings, and you can create that account instantly. So the power here is really in the business owner's hands, which is pretty great, but you as advisors can also help out with this. Now, I'm sure many of you have clients that already have existing banking relationships. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily happy with their bank. It's not too often that the word happy is used in relation to their banking relationship they have. It's usually more neutral or settled. And the top three challenges that I see with small business banking or people that are actively complaining about their banks is going to be cost related. So it can be expensive where they bank, be technology related, or access related. And so if you're wondering like, hey, Relay already looks pretty good for people, how do I talk to clients about it? Anchoring on those three pain points, most small businesses have one, if not all three, is definitely a good way to start that conversation. But for existing banking relationships, Relay does connect to 100% of US business banks. You can get connected directly. It is free to transfer funds in and out of Relay and typically takes 1 business day. So if you want to utilize multiple relationships, you can. And again, we're very friendly with other banks, which is also not usually a term that you see with other banking platforms. Now, if you are going to go the route of profit first or using multiple accounts, of course, you can transfer funds in between the accounts here. So you can transfer from one account to multiple, and you can do this all at the same time, either by dollar amount or by percentage. So that's pretty great. No more Excel sheet, no calculator. We can move funds how we want to do that. Now, for those business owners that are really interested in automation, which I feel like we all should be in 2024, or if you're like, hey, my time is better spent somewhere else in the business and less in the bank account, we have something called an auto transfer rule. So if you've decided that you know exactly where you want your money to go throughout the month, you can set up a personalized rule. So you can say every Monday, I'm going to totally zero out my main income account, and by percentage, you can divvy up all the funds here. This is going to go to different areas of the business, but it's just going to run in the background based on the frequency that you've set, and you can set it and forget it. So if you have different savings goals that you want to work for, new equipment, inventory purchases, this is a really nice way to put it on autopilot and not rely on your clients as a business owner or you as the advisor to move that money and make sure they're staying accountable to it. Now, when Amy was showing all the different transactions that can come in and out of an e-commerce business, obviously there is a lot, and Relay does offer debit and credit options. Now, what's really cool about this is specifically for our debit cards, you are able to create them whenever you want, 50 per entity if you really wanted, but they can be virtual or physical. And when you are creating the cards, you can tie them to specific people in the business, but also specific business accounts. So if you want to keep all of the business transactions coming out of an operating expenses account, you can. Or if you're going even further and want to do, specific client or project work, this is a nice way to do it. You can set individual limits, but you can also require receipts on these transactions. So A2X will have all the background data of the transactions happening, and then the physical transaction receipts you can send directly into Relay too, which is pretty cool. So you can set it up so that every single time somebody makes an in-person purchase, they get a text message saying, hey, don't forget to upload the receipt, and it will match to the transaction here in Relay and eventually move over to your accounting software as well. So definitely love that feature and pretty time saving. So the more clients that you have on Relay banking with us, the more of these features that you can really start to use. Now for payments, I know e-commerce businesses, you can be dealing with a lot of international inventory purchases or suppliers. And so on Relay, we've got a few different options for your payments. You can do next day ACH payments for free. So obviously within the US, we do check payments for free as well. You also have the option to print your own checkbook. Now, what's really great here is the wire option. So domestically, you can wire within the country for $5, and internationally, you can wire for $10. So pretty great price. I know a lot of institutions will charge $30, $40, $50 a wire, and sometimes physically make you go in to make that wire. So this can all be done directly on your phone or your computer. And if you are a business that really has a lot of wire activity or you want some faster payment styles, we also have an option called Relay Pro. And the idea here is it's an accounts payable subscription. So it's another layered connection to your accounting software. Bills in QuickBooks or Xero will automatically show up in Relay. You can set up approvals on these payments, but you also get unlimited same-day ACH payments and unlimited wires. So if you are sending quite a few wires a month, $30 flat fee for as many wires as you can do is pretty fantastic and should save you a lot of money. Now, I should also mention at this point that any incoming payments to Relay are also free. The last thing I wanted to show, since we have so many advisors on the call today, is the ability to collaborate on Relay. So that is truly what we are built to do. If your clients have different team members, office admins that they want to invite, they can do so via email. Business owners always in control of their access. But it's the same thing for you as advisors. So if you are strictly doing bookkeeping for someone, they can give you read-only access, but often your role extends past that. Whether it's you're maybe a temporary CFO for them, you're making payments for them, you're helping them save for taxes, you can get all the way up to full access should you need it. The point here is it is under your separate login and with your own password and 2FA. So it allows you to do the job you need to do, but do it safely.
Awesome. Thanks for the demo, Deanna. I was actually just thinking back to camp, and we had sessions that were round tables, and it was really nice because there was someone from Relay sitting at my table. And I remember thinking, oh, I should really try and sort of bring them into the conversation at some point. But then actually one of the partners who was sitting at the table sort of asked about Relay, and we got a bit of a run through, and it was great because there are partners there who were already using Relay, and they could, I feel like they were selling the tool themselves for the person that was there from Relay. It was, all really, really positive things. And people were asking about, wow, we can have this for free. It was awesome. And one of the other points that one of the accountants made is the detail that comes into QuickBooks and the banking screen is really nice and tidy and detailed. So that was a point that they really liked from, I guess, more of an accounting perspective. So it sounds like an awesome tool.
Yes, we love to hear good feedback about Relay. And what I actually find working with accountants and bookkeepers every day is if they like something, they really like someone, and something, they really want to talk about it because they will see the impact on their business, on their client's business. And it's like they want to shout it from the rooftop. So I'm glad that they did that with you sitting there, Amy. And I'm sure there's people in the chat that feel the same way. So thank you for sharing.
Definitely. And it really ties back to that advisory point as well. If you are wanting to know more about either of these apps, definitely reach out to us. I think I've got the next slide here. You can try A2X for free. So we have a free trial. Feel free to sign up and have a bit of a play around. Or if you're interested in hearing more, you can also book a demo with A2X and we can go into more detail. From an accounting perspective, we've got a partner program. So we provide like certification and a lot of training for accountants and bookkeepers. So if you're wanting to provide those advisory services and really understand the ins and outs of apps, feel free to reach out to us. And I'm sure it's the same for Relay as well.
100%.
Awesome. Okay, so we do have one question that's come through. I believe I actually probably forgot to mention at the beginning of the webinar. If you have questions, absolutely put those into the Q&A and we'll answer this one. And then I think we've got a few moments. So if there's any more that come through, we can answer those as well. So the first one I have here is from Sandra. So it says, my client uses the inventory function in QBO and it doesn't look like the entry that A2X is making will adjust the inventory. So a couple of points here. So you can use the A2X tool and still post through the sales. We also have a cost of goods sold feature, which at the moment will send the value of the total goods that were sold. So say you sold maybe $300 worth of stock, A2X will send that through adjust an inventory asset account and reduce that from apply it to the cost of goods sold expense account. So yes, you are correct in that at the moment it doesn't line up perfectly with the QuickBooks inventory function. There are some workarounds that we can do because we list out the units that were sold. So depending on your current process, it might be easier to use A2X and then just adjust those totals. But the other thing I would say is watch this space. So I've made a note of your name, Sandra. This is definitely something we get asked about and it's on A2X's radar. So I would not be surprised if it was something that A2X looked at in the future. Awesome. While we're just seeing if any more questions come through, I mentioned a little bit about A2X's partner program, but do you guys have a partner program at Relay? Yeah,
we sure do. Like any good accounting product. So Relay does have a partner program. If you are an accounting firm, you're eligible to join it. You just need a partner dashboard and a Relay bank account. And the idea is every time that you bring a client onto Relay, we will pay you out for it. Now, if this is the first time you are looking at Relay, you're probably already thinking, hey, this looks pretty good. I already want to talk to my clients about it because it makes my job more efficient. It provides my client with a really great banking experience. But on top of that, we will pay you. So we'll pay you for every client you bring on. And if your clients do get to certain balance milestones throughout their time on Relay, we'll pay you out again. So there's free money available. And with the partner program, you also get connected to a direct account rep with Relay, so we can help you onboard your clients, sell to your clients about Relay if you really want, and really support you on the back end, because that is something you have to think about when you are adding a new app to your tech stack, right? Is what does the onboarding look like? What's the learning curve here for my clients and I, and where is that support going to come from? And that comes from our team directly, which is pretty cool. So not only do we pay you, but we also help you out on the back end.
Love it. Definitely from an again, advisory perspective, you can making great suggestions and making money. So love it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, okay, we must have covered everything in the demos because I'm not seeing any more questions come. Oh, just as I was about to wrap up. Okay, so there's a question that's come through here. So I'll just read it out. So I have 50 plus clients in the US, but I'm not located in the US. So I cannot recommend Relay to anyone, as I cannot have Relay's bank account myself.
That's a great question. So if you have a US registered business and the business has a US address that you can put as your business address, so basically you can prove US operations, you would absolutely be able to take advantage of this. You just have to make sure that you can sign up for Relay yourself. If you are not a US registered business, but you work with US clients, then no, you would not be able to take advantage of this. If you have more questions about that, I suggest emailing directly into our Relay support team, and we can look at your case specifically. But as long as you're US registered, we can pretty much figure it out.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have. So, which actually times out perfectly for the 45-minute webinar. So, thank you so much for joining today, Deanna. It's been awesome to chat backwards and forwards, and also awesome to see Relay. We see you guys everywhere. So awesome to actually see the product in use.
Yes, thank you so much for having us today, Amy. It's been a blast. And yeah, hopefully we get some more people trying out A2X and Relay together.
100%. Cool. And thanks everyone so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks very much.
Bye, everyone.